Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by Draftkings Sportsbook, the number one rated sportsbook app out there. I'm your host, Rudo, joined by AJ Hafley. We've been talking about Avs contracts lately, but on today's show, we're going to take a little bit of a wider look around the league at some of the big players that could be in this offseason. Now, nothing is guaranteed, of course. They could very well all stay put for all we know.
I'm making guarantees. They're all moving.
Every single one?
Mass chaos is upon us.
All right. Let chaos reign, baby.
And the Kraken have arrived, and they are going to bring with them the Thunder.
Bring it down. Rain hell upon the league.
Yep.
It's going to be I heard a lot of teams were having a little bit of sticker shock with what Seattle was asking for making certain selections. So
look, I spent all morning shopping for cars. Sticker shock is a real thing.
You're sticker shocked right now?
I would say no. But I would also say that the car purchasing process is the most insane thing I have ever heard of. The number of comical hoops that they expect you to jump through, and that we as a society have just been like,
this is acceptable.
You gotta do what you gotta do to get a car, you know what I mean? Somehow these people have gotten to rig this system so that it's like, we're just gonna roll in money always.
Must be nice.
It's insane. And apparently because of COVID, like there are things like chip shortages. So car manufacturing is like way down. And people are like, oh yeah, no, you're not gonna be able to get that version of that vehicle November.
Jesus.
And I was like, say what? Like, November? Girl, please. What is happening? And they're like I have avoided like debt my adult life. Like, I've never had a credit card before. Apparently that's a bad thing.
Yeah, no.
And they're like, look, you gotta accrue some good debt so that you can accrue some big debt and buy shit like cars and houses and stuff. And I'm like,
gotta spend money to spend money,
what
AJ.
The shit is this system, bro? It is insane. It makes no sense. I thought healthcare was confusing. This makes no sense.
Well,
what the fuck? So
I'm not the man to explain it to you. I don't think
this is like what I have spent the last, like, I would say like 2 months like learning all about this stuff, because it's just never been part of my life. My entire adult life has been like, oh, can I pay for that? No, then I don't have that.
Yep.
And it was just like, it's been so crazy, dude. Like, debt and I don't know, the whole credit system. It's been wild. I would try and make this a clever segue into talking about Seth Jones, but it's just not going to happen. There is no clever segue. It's just been a weird day. And so, like, you guys are just going to have to deal with me being in a weird mood, as I've learned all kinds of things about being an adult that I turned 34 in 2 months to the day, actually. And I didn't know any of this. So and we're in the off season now. So you guys have to deal with me being like this. But
well,
I apologize for the immediate divergence into Crazy Town. But it's been a weird day.
All right. I hope it only gets weirder. But should we? I feel like we've already tried to kibosh this, but let's do it again on this show. There's very few universes out in the multiverse where the Avs even want to go get Seth Jones right now, correct?
So, how much would Seth Jones help Colorado? Let's start there.
Sure.
And let's have like an honest conversation about Seth Jones in his career.
Yep.
In that he was very, very highly rated coming out. And when you look at the class where he was drafted 4th, you look at the guys drafted in front of it, and it's like
all of them are studs. Yep.
2 legitimate superstars. And one guy who I think his development just got like jacked around and we'll never get to see his full potential in Drouin, but like a mediocre top 6 guy.
Yep.
Like, I understand that Drouin's fancy numbers aren't very good, but there's always going to be value in a guy that can give you 50 points in a season. Because you have guys like Val Nichushkin who have great fancy stats and couldn't finish a sentence. So, like there's always going to be value in guys that score points. And it's the weirdest thing of the analytics movement to undervalue guys who just put pucks in the net. It's one of the weirdest things about the analytics thing for me is that people are like, "Oh, I bet you're judging off points again," and you're like,
"Isn't that the whole point of hockey? Is to score?"
Like, I understand that shooting and stuff is important, and that like driving play is really important, but if you don't, like Kiefer Sherwood shoots a lot, if you don't score, if you don't beat goaltenders, if you don't rack up points, your team loses.
Yep.
A lot. So anyway, what I want to do is I want to be like, let's be real here. Seth Jones is coming off a real bad year.
Two middling years in a row, honestly.
Well, and if you look at his 3-year trend, it's going like that.
Yep.
I guess that
downward.
We're reversed.
We're going backwards in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at his career as a whole. He had a great 3-year stretch in Columbus, but his first 3 years in Nashville, not amazing. His last 2 years in Columbus, they are, like, as a comparison, they're quite similar to the numbers that Sam Girard is putting up. The 3-year stretch in the middle, yes, he was significantly better.
A big problem here too is that his defense has taken a big step back.
Yep.
And that, look, at 26 years old, you have a lot of things up in the air about his career, and you're asking real questions about just how good is this guy.
Sure.
Because you don't tend to look at guys in their ages 24, 25, and 26 season and say, they're on a downward trend. Why is this? Like, that's not the way that it's supposed to be going. So I think, how much would Seth Jones help Colorado versus the price it would take to acquire him?
And that's the price is where the problem comes in. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because look, to be honest, you could find the money.
Yep.
You can find the money. Because you would have to move Eric Johnson back.
Yep.
They would just have to take EJ. And Colorado could retain a little bit on that and whatever. But Seth Jones, 1 year left on his deal, and then he's moving into free agency.
Yep.
And at $5.4 million, he's not going to be making that much. He's not going to be making that number for much longer.
Nope.
I genuinely don't know where the market for defensemen goes. I think what Seth Jones is going to benefit a lot from is whatever happens with Dougie.
I mean, it's also going to depend on how he plays next year quite a bit, I think.
Sure.
As well,
but the team that acquires him is going to do so and immediately talk to him about this.
True.
So they probably won't have a chance to see how he plays and how he fits in and all of that. They're going to want to do that quickly. Because it's going to be a hefty price. You're talking about a first-round pick, a top prospect, and then from there, probably an NHL player, and then maybe another high pick, a second or third rounder.
It would not be cheap at all.
So, and for a team like Colorado, that's probably 2 firsts. They don't have seconds, and their firsts Their first this year is 28, although it's technically 27 because Arizona forfeits their pick.
Yeah, because Arizona just doesn't exist.
Yeah, like Arizona's like in there,
but not.
But it's like
yeah.
the Avalanche will pick the 27th player in the draft, even though it's. I think it will officially be the 28th pick.
Correct.
So, anyway, I was looking at it last night and was like, "Have I been lying to people? Have I been telling people it's 28?" And it's like, "Oh, Arizona, you tricky bastards, and your forfeited picks." That's what you get for being cheat holes, fellas.
Can confirm.
Anyway, Seth Jones. I mean, look, if you get the version of Seth Jones that Columbus got 2 years ago,
you're rolling in it. You love it.
Let's be real. Hell yeah.
I mean, that's if you get that version of Seth Jones, the Avs top 5, maybe 6 is disgusting.
You would expect Eric Johnson's gone.
Right, but you still have Makar, Girard, Taves, Jones, and then Byram, Graves, Timmins in whatever order you want. Like, that's stupid.
It's pretty solid. It's a lot of projection because you're still Byram and Timmins obviously still have to take the next big steps. But I mean,
you're talking about them as hard third pairing dudes because you have Jones and Taves as your second pair, or Jones and Makar as a pair. However you want to cut the bread, it doesn't matter for the top 4.
So that's that's if you get the good Seth Jones. If you get the Seth Jones from last year,
he's fine.
But when we talked about finding support for Sam Girard in the postseason, would Seth Jones be like the ultimate yes to that? Where you're like,
it's hard. It'd be hard to say no in that regard for sure. But
I'm worried about the decline. If this was 1 year,
yep.
The thing is though is that the decline from the last 3 years, like from 18-19 to 19-20, it wasn't huge. It was worse.
As much about missing games as anything else.
But this last year was a huge decline.
Yep.
And that's a concern. But it's also like, okay, even if he goes back to the level 2 years ago, let's be real, that dude is still not worth $9 million. The one Seth Jones from two years ago.
Not even.
But
there is an argument that Seth Jones is not worth $9 million, full stop, even in his best year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But he gonna get it.
Just like buying a car.
Why you gotta do that, dog? But with Jones, it's like, yeah, the support would be there, but you're also paying for like top.
You're paying for a top pairing guy when the Avs don't really need a top pairing guy right now.
Like some of that $9 million gets wasted, right?
Yep.
Like because you're playing him in a top 4-ish role. Like I think that some of that will get, like, some of that value, some of the theoretical value anyway, would be, you're like, okay, well, it's a little redundant. Obviously you love it, but you love the talent that you've built up on your defense. Yeah. But at the same time, you're paying full price for a guy to play that you think of that would play 25 minutes for you. He's playing 21.
Yeah.
So,
couple questions here. Look, I appreciate the hockey guy, but no one's going to offer sheet Makar for various reasons, and if they do, the Avs will just match. So it's not a problem.
Offer sheets
are a myth, basically.
I cannot believe that listeners of this podcast are still doing this.
Offer sheets are fake. Yep.
Offer sheets are a thing that exist so that people like us can talk about them because they're fun to talk about. They are irrelevant in the real world. Because even the last 2 offer sheets that have been signed have been matched approximately 14 seconds after they got signed.
I cannot remember the last offer sheet that actually went through and was not matched by the team.
Yeah, like, are we talking like Dustin Penner back in the day? Like, it's been so long.
Yeah, I want to say that's the last one that actually like worked.
How long has that guy been out of the league? Like,
at least
it was back. It was back in that era where there was a handful. It was a handful of offer sheets that like got signed in a couple of year period, and it was like, what is this?
Nick, thank you for the super chat. Do you YOLO and do the Saad type of situation, trade for him on the last year and just see again? So the specific situation with Saad is look at the price that the Avs got him for. The Avs were able to acquire Brandon Saad with Chicago retaining salary for Nikita Zadorov and Anton Lindholm. And they even got a prospect thrown in as well.
Yeah. They got Anton Lindholm back in the deal. Anton Lindholm and Dennis Gilbert are the same guy.
Right. So if you could get Seth Jones for that price, hell yeah. But there's no way you're getting Seth Jones for anywhere near that price. And that's the problem with Jones, is that the price Columbus is going to want for him is way too high for you to just say, oh, this is just a rental.
Yeah.
Also,
I would, no disrespect to the hockey guy.
No, like I said, I appreciate his work. He's out there grinding every single day, does great work. But
people love his stuff.
His offer sheet take on Makar is just not correct.
Well, and it's just like, look, you're not gonna. This isn't a real conversation.
Yep.
Somebody's gonna offer sheet Cale Makar, and the Avs are gonna be like, "Thanks, you just saved us a shitload of work."
And that's just reality. Like, the hockey guy does a great job of covering the league as a whole. If you want to get into the minutia of teams, you listen to podcasts like us on the Avs.
Yeah, absolutely. You know how hard it is to be really well versed on 32 NHL organizations?
Basically,
I can tell you, it's impossible. It is impossible to do.
Yep.
So, Seth Jones, an interesting conversation. He's going somewhere. As I've said previously, and as somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, somebody is going to do something irresponsible for him. Yep. I don't think it's going to be Colorado, although it's not hard to see why it would be fun if they did. Like,
Colorado's just not the team that's desperate for a defenseman right now, right?
Yeah, the upside of it is like, oh, you're building a super team on defense, and now that the expansion draft will be behind them, there's no longer this consideration. There's no longer like Seattle looms on the horizon, as every move that was made in the last 2 or 3 years was like
about that. Yeah.
Seattle coming. You got to be careful. Don't build too good of a team now. You don't have to worry about any of that now. So it's somebody's going to do something. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I'm glad it's not Colorado's probably not going to be involved in any of that.
Yep. I agree. We can take our first period break on that note. AJ, I'm going to put you on the spot here for our DraftKings pick of the week. Who wins the cup? Both series are 1-1 right now.
Which cup?
Stanley Cup.
The Islanders.
He's taking the Islanders.
We're here to make money on that. So I'm going with my Isles.
It's not the full on Montreal, I think, is like plus 850. The Isles are only like plus 400 or something, but you can make good money off the Isles. If you take the Isles right now over at DraftKings Sportsbook to win the Stanley Cup, Make yourself some money. You can also use code DNVR when you sign up and bet on any basketball team to win their next game that's still in it. If they win, you turn $1 into $100 in site credits. So jump on over there, use our pick of the week, use your own intuition, use the odds boosts over at DraftKings Sportsbook to win yourself a whole bunch of money, whether it be on basketball, hockey, baseball, anything else you can imagine as well. All of it's awesome to bet on at DraftKings. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code DNVR when you sign up for that $1 into $100 in free credits opportunity for a limited time only. New customers only. Wager paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Also brought to you by Gabby Insurance. Gabby stands for Get a Better Insurance. You can check them out at gabby.com/DNVR. That's GABI.com/DNVR to see what they got and let them know we sent you. They are just trying to find you the best insurance rates possible for you. Many of us here at DNVR have used it and saved hundreds of dollars, in some cases well over $1,000 a year. So check them out today and just see how much you can save on home and auto insurance. It's completely free to use. Why not at least take a look and save yourself a good old bundle of cash, which you can then spend on the DNVR house fund. Allie got a couple more dollars donated on TDSP, so we're down to like $999,800 or something to go. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe you donated to the yacht fund. Why not? The DNVR yacht fund as well. I feel like I'm doing a terrible job of telling you to give us your money, but we have awesome content. You can get a free shirt and mask with an annual membership. You get big beers at the DNVR bar, as well as a bunch of other awesome stuff. So check it out. Support us. It's a great way to do it. While the super chats are also great, the best way to support us is, of course, signing up for a DNVR membership. So if you haven't done it, do it. We love all of y'all. Yeah, Cygnus moving into the DNVR subdivision, confirmed.
I'm all about the subdivision. That idea was a good one.
Thank you for the $5, Sasha. $5 more to the house fund for DNVR. When DNVR hosts some type of like Big Brother event, this is y'all's fault. Just so you know, the DNVR mansion. Would it be a main? I feel like Big Brother would be closer. I think AJ and I would probably push for like a streamer house.
Oh,
but
that'd be a fun one.
Yep.
We would need like we would need one of those stream, like we would need some separation.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, I don't want to run into too many people.
Yeah. You need the all right.
The raw truth is that living with people increases the amount of time you have to spend wearing pants.
It's true.
And that is just such a hassle.
So take it to the next level. Forget a streamer house, a streamer subdivision. All right.
Yeah. I like the cul-de-sac is a cool idea.
The Coldy. Yeah, there you go. The whole streamer, the streamer roundabout. Got it. All right. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. AJ, which fire sale do you want to get into first? Buffalo or Calgary?
Buffalo.
All right. The Buffalo fire sale. Obviously, the big name, Jack Eichel. Sam Reinhart also lurking around that conversation, which we've talked about a little bit. But look, you and I are not on this crazy train of people who are saying we should, or the Avs rather, should not protect Nazem Kadri. But if you were theoretically on that train,
I am totally wearing pants, damn it.
Would Jack Eichel not be a ridiculous replacement?
If there was no salary cap.
Right. There's obviously this massive issue of the Avs would have to find a way to fit Jack Eichel's $10 million deal. But
yeah, they would have to find a way to. It's because like they could do it this year, right? Like you pay them in picks and prospects so that you give them Eric Johnson and Nazem Kadri.
Yep.
And like, boom, you've paid for Jack Eichel's salary this year.
But going forward, as
But
soon as
when
you
it
have
comes-
to pay Nathan McKinnon,
when it comes time to pay McKinnon, you in trouble.
yeah,
That would be one where you're like, Jack Eichel and Landeskog has to walk.
yep. It would burn down real quick, to say the least.
Yeah. They only have limited no trade clauses, so.
So is that the thing with Eichel then? Is Eichel a fear that he's coming to the Central Division and going to be a problem?
It's my number one fear. Is that the Minnesota Wild, that Bill Guerin, that sneaky devil, is going to make it happen.
Boy,
because between some of their prospects, and they can dump some of the money. Look, if they can convince Zach to Buffalo to take on Zach Parise's deal, Yahtzee, right? Like that's
all of a sudden you turn that into an Eichel, and Minnesota gets the center they've been needing. Yeah,
and then the Jack Eichel and Kirill the Thrill making sweet music together, and it's like, shit, this just got a lot tougher in the Central.
Yeah, it's definitely, you're begging him not to come to the Central, right? Go anywhere else. Go to the Pacific, stay out east, do something else, because the Central not going to be easy next year. It's not going to be the cakewalk of a division that the Avs had this year.
Yeah. And Minnesota lurks is like, they need that center. And they've got enough interesting young players. And look, it would really help their expansion draft if they could move one of those defenders in a deal. And if you move him for Eichel, you're less upset about that deal.
Yep. I mean, they could legitimately, you can talk about Boldy being a center or not, but that's a team that could go from 2 years ago having no centers to having 1, 2, 3 down the middle. That is insanely strong.
Yeah, I think Boldy would have to be maybe not. I don't know. It would be real hard for Buffalo to make an Eichel deal with Minnesota and not get
Boldy. Yeah, that's fair.
But if it's not Boldy, then I think Adam Beckman has to be involved in that.
Yeah. If you're talking about multiple firsts,
Marat Kuzmadinov has to be involved in that. Other first round picks have to be involved in that.
Yeah.
Maybe they can convince Buffalo to take on that disaster of a pick they made a couple years ago in the Swedish defenseman.
Oh God, Joe, is it Johansson?
Yeah, it's Philip Johansson.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but those are like they would. I think it would have to be one of the defensive pieces. It would have to be Brodin or Dumba.
Yep. Because
Spurgeon, that's their captain. Suter's like
a billion years old.
It wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I think it would have to be Brodin or Dumba. Dumba's probably just the one that makes the most sense. That's my fear, man.
Yep.
Because it just makes so much sense, and because they are in a position to strike like that. The problem for them has been centers coming onto the market. Teams willing to move those guys.
And
now that there's a big one,
arguable top 5 center in the league is coming onto the market.
So we go from that, and if they can't get that dude, then certainly they should be in play for Reinhart.
Yep.
Although I think Reinhart goes out west. I think that dude lands in LA if Eichel doesn't land in LA. Man. But LA should trade for them both. To be
Reinhart
honest.
Would be a perfect fit in LA, honestly, but I mean, that, as Sam asks in the chat here, can we assume he means the Avs get Reinhart realistically? It would be hard, assuming Landy stays and Makar stays and all the other internal stuff the Avs have to do. It would be hard to get Reinhart.
Well, they would have to pay, like, okay, you could totally do it. But I don't see how you would want to get Reinhart to add him to the group. Right.
You're getting Reinhart to replace Saad in this scenario, essentially.
Right. And so that's what's really hard to do is now you're trying to convince Buffalo to give you Reinhart, and you haven't touched any of your top 6.
Yep.
Like, you haven't touched any of those guys there. So you haven't made them any better. But you give them, okay, well, we'll give you one of our defensemen.
Yep.
Like, they're not taking Connor Timmins in that deal. They're asking for Sam Girard in that deal. And then they're asking for a first-round pick. And then they're asking for something else and something else and something else. And you're just like, dude, at what point is this?
Price spirals out of control, yeah.
For the 6th forward in our top 6 here, is this really how we want to go about this? Because if you include Kadri in that deal, okay, well, now you have to replace Kadri.
You're making a big bet on Alex Newhook if you're doing that, yeah.
Yeah. And if you're going to try and play Reinhart at center, which PS don't do that, but if that's what you're doing, then you're okay. I like the Kadri to Reinhart, but now you're still replacing Saad, and you're still trying to figure out what to do there.
Yep.
So it's probably the only way that I think Reinhart in Colorado really makes any sense is if Landeskog does walk.
Yep.
If they do include a Burakovsky in that deal. And look, I think there would be some wisdom in that. Burakovsky's got 1 year left on his contract until he's a UFA.
Yeah.
He scores he goes out and scores 20 again next year for the Avs. It's 3 straight years. I guess he got to 19 this year, didn't he?
19 in what, like 52 games or something, yeah.
So, he goes out and scores 20 next year, and
dude's getting paid.
As a 28-year-old in the free agent, as a got good size, great shooter.
Gonna
make money
in a vacuum. Replacing Burakovsky with Reinhart, I'm all for it, and I love Berkey, but
same. I also think that makes them a little harder to play against. It makes them a little more well-rounded, but you also lose what you have in Burakovsky, which is a guy that even when he's playing poorly can just put one past a goaltender.
Yep.
And you're replacing him with a guy who has to work a lot harder to score goals.
And again, it comes down to the rest of that cost, right?
Yep. Because it's not just Burakovsky,
right.
It's Burakovsky and a first-round pick. And
yep.
And then maybe that's the deal that they take Connor Timmins in.
Sure.
But even then, it would have to be Connor Timmins, a first-round pick, and Andre Burakovsky just for Sam Reinhart, just to pay Sam Reinhart $7 million
after this next year. Yeah.
So
it's a tough sell.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's rough there. Jack Eichel would be a lot of fun. It's just
not realistic.
Look, if the cap was going to go up in that time, if the cap was going to take its
conversation, sure, yeah.
Like that would be the bet that you're making, is that the flat cap is not going to
last that long.
The flat cap will jump up when McKinnon's deal ends, and it takes like a $10 million jump, and you're like, sweet, that pays for it.
Yep, pretty much. So definitely could be tough to find a way to get anything out of Buffalo effectively for Colorado at the very least.
And like they're not going to trade Rasmus Dahlin.
No shot.
Colorado didn't really need to do that anyway.
Colorado should have zero interest in Casey Middlestat.
Yeah, they don't need to mess with Casey Middlestat. They don't need to mess with Rasmus Ristolainen. Any of the other guys on their team. It's just no thanks. They just don't need to go down that road.
Yep.
It's not that there is an upside, it's that you're rolling the dice. You're paying for something to happen that goes against the grain of what has already taken place.
Yeah. Take a quick detour here. We'll get to Calgary in a little bit, but I saw someone in chat talking about Nugent-Hopkins.
So RNH, I think, is interesting.
It especially when you're talking about RNH, the question is, what do you have of faith in Nazem Kadri and Alex Newhook?
Yeah.
How do you make that work at center?
I think that would be you would have to. You'd have to move on from Kadri.
Yep. You're dropping in RNH as your 2C, basically, I think.
I think RNH is better defensively at this point in his career than Kadri is. But you lose a little bit of Kadri's edge, which obviously, as we saw, double-edged sword there. I know that RNH has moved to wing to accommodate the super centers that they've got there.
He can play wing if need be, yeah.
Yeah, so he can play on that left side, which is where they would need the help.
The thing with RNH is he is a free agent at the end of this year if he's not signed. So you would have to pay the free agent premium price for him. And this is a guy who had a down year a bit in 2021, but had 60-point years in the 2 years previous. Granted, yeah, sure, he plays with Draisaitl and McDavid to a certain extent, but that guy's not going to be cheap.
Yeah. I mean, I think because of his production, because of the role increase that he's likely to see if he leaves Edmonton, which I still think is unlikely, but you're taking Landeskog's money and kind of just copying and pasting it.
Yep.
I mean, it's the same. It's basically the same money.
Well, yeah, right. And the question every time you have that is, how do you find that money?
Because at that point you need Seattle to take one of those guys from you, one of the $3 million guys. Then you need to trade one of those $3 million guys on your own.
Yep.
So now you got to find a taker for $3 million, which who
has that?
Who knows?
Room right now, yeah.
It shouldn't be, the gridlock shouldn't be like it was last offseason, but it also won't be like
a free pass either.
It's like if they put JT Compher on waivers, I think he would probably get claimed. But you don't want to do that because then you just lost him for nothing, and that's also not what you want to do there. But you would have to find that money. As in addition to trading Kadri for something, you would have to find additional money.
Yep.
So that the RNH thing would be interesting, but it would be fun, right? But no, not by July 1st. They don't have to be signed in the next 2 weeks while the season is still on.
It will probably end up being somewhere around August 1st.
Free agency. I have the hold on.
Yeah, do you have the actual date?
I've got.
It will be after the expansion and regular drafts, for sure, at very least.
Free agency opens at noon Eastern on July 28th.
28th. There you go. So, immediately after the draft. But
so.
All right. In any case, we have a super chat here from Jacob. Thank you very much. Any chance Saad takes a pay cut based on where he is in his career? Already won cups, been paid well in his last deal, and has started a family? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier this week.
Yep.
I think the Landeskog episode, we kind of touched on this with Brandon Saad. That
I think so, yep.
His priority, Edmonton's going to have enough cap space that they could throw a ton of money at him and say, hey, come make $6 million again and play in the super side, the super top six of ours. Other teams that need help, I think, will also be of interest in terms of being able to give him that kind of money. But if his priorities are, hey, I've been making $6 million already, I can go ahead and make $4.5 million this year to play in a place where I'm going to be comfortable. My family likes it. We're competitive. He made a lot of sense here. He was a good fit. His postseason was a little he scored 3 ultra fluky goals in the Vegas series.
Yeah.
So you're just kind of you don't look at the numbers that he put up in the postseason and go, oh, he'll totally do that again. See Andrei Burakovsky. But a really definitely a guy that you could absolutely envision saying, I'll take less money, like legitimately less money, $1.5 million, maybe $2 million less to play in a place that's more competitive. Because I really got the sense that he did not enjoy that rebuilding process that they were going through in Chicago.
Yeah. I mean, yep.
I don't know that anybody like enjoys it, but some guys are like, look, I want to be here.
Right.
I'm here to help this process along or whatever. And I think he was like,
I just want to go back to winning, man.
Yeah. It's like competing for Stanley Cups is way more fun than this shit.
Well, we'll have to wait and see on Saad's decision, but we do need to take our second period break as we are brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. You can get 25% off your first order at StravaCraftCoffee.com and use code DNVR25 and get 20% off for life with their subscription service. You can also check it out cold brew down at the DNVR bar. Also have Chevalier Mortgage. Both Mike and Virginia have been in the business for a while now, and with incredibly good rates, there has never been a better time to get a home loan, but they will give you a whole lot more than that, as Mike is a certified financial planner, so they can hook up your entire financial picture, looking at more than just the home loan for you and get you all sorted out top to bottom. So check them out today at dnvrmortgage.com. You can also get yourself signed up for a chance to win some free DNVR merch over there. It's great stuff. You can also call Virginia for a consultation at 303-257-6578. Awesome people. They've been local and supporters of us for a long time. So check them out. Michael Chevalier, NMLS 1931006, Virginia Chevalier, NMLS 1910631. And, of course, brought to y'all by the amazing Green Mountain Dental Group, just 15 minutes from downtown. They do awesome work on your teeth. We've had dozens of people switch, and they all say it's one of their best dental experiences they've ever had. Plus, they will give you a free Sonicare toothbrush for signing up for a cleaning, x-ray, and exam with them. So check them out today as well. Get yourself a free electric toothbrush just for taking care of your teeth. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, presented by that Draftkings Sportsbook with Rudo and AJ. Do we want to get into Calgary, AJ? Because is it going to happen? Is Calgary going to blow it up?
I think they're the most interesting one, right?
I think they have the most question marks surrounding them. When you look at someone like Buffalo, it sure seems like the inevitable is going to happen there. I lots of stories about Eichel and Reinhart not being happy in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's happening, but I also think that the Calgary one, look, if they move Sean Monahan, they move Johnny Gaudreau, they have to go all in with it. You know, you have to move Mikael Backlund, you have to move Elias Lindholm, you should be looking at Mangiapane. Like that should not be
everything is available process. Type of situation. Yeah. Sure.
If they decide to do it, they have to go hard.
Yep. Full fire sale.
Yeah, I think so.
And look, this podcast, we're focusing on more of the star side of things, so that's basically Gaudreau and Monahan.
Yeah, but they're out of time.
Yep.
Like Dylan says, he's not convinced Calgary has any interest in making decisions. Johnny Gaudreau's a year from UFA. They're out of time.
This is the inevitable wall you hit when you sit in the Calgary zone forever.
Yeah, this is why it's the Calgary zone.
Yep. And making no decisions is not going to help Calgary. It's totally possible that they do nothing, but they're not getting better by doing nothing.
They've got Gaudreau expiring next year. They've got Tkachuk up for a new deal after that.
RFA, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as an RFA, but he's going to get more than the $7 million he's making.
Yep.
He's too good. So, you know, they have to make decisions here. Like a guy like Mangiapane, he's only got one more year at the rate that he's making, and they aren't drowning in young guys that can, phrasing, but they don't have a bunch of young talent that's just knocking on the door, like just waiting to replace a lot of these guys. They need to go out. They need to move some of these guys to get it.
Raining men in Calgary, it is not.
Like Mark Giordano, you expect that guy's probably going to stay. He's 37. Like, that's good.
But that dude's playing out the twilight of his career.
Yeah, but you have to have Chris Tanev, 31, making $4.5 million. What, like, that guy's value around the league should have only gone up after watching what happened with Quinn Hughes this year away from Chris Tanev.
Yep.
So, Tanev, and I know Tanev is a warrior and the teams love him because of that toughness, but you also have like Rasmus Anderson, Noah Hannafin. What are they going to do there? Those should be building blocks, and I think Anderson is, but Noah Hannafin, again, it just all the tools in the world, all the potential, all the everything.
If you could stick one player and call them the Calgary Zone, would it not be Noah Hannafin?
Yeah. It's a great way to put it.
So, I mean, but yeah, you're right. Calgary is in definitely a tough spot, and if they do decide to make moves, it's something that they have to commit to. They can't go halfway in on it.
Well, it doesn't make any sense to move Johnny Gaudreau and then be like, "We're done." You got worse.
Yeah.
But you're still rolling out a bunch of guys that aren't going to do anything. Like I said, I took a bunch of heat from Detroit fans for saying they should move Anthony Mantha because he was going to age out of their next competitive window, and that Detroit was just going to have to pay him for that. And they were like, "You're an idiot. You build around that guy." Well, he's gone for that exact reason. You should be looking at Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan as guys that you have that conversation about. Now, with Monahan, you're worried because the play has dropped a bunch. Like, that was a guy who was outscoring Nathan McKinnon the first several years of their career and then just never really got any better.
The thing is, you worry about Johnny Gaudreau too, right? Not to be a size queen, but you have to realistically understand a player of that size and that play style is far less likely to age gracefully than other styles of play that don't rely so much on speed and agility to do what they do.
And if you're comfortable with the Johnny Gaudreau that they've seen the last 2 years, a really good player, a really good playmaker, 58 points, 49 points in seasons that weren't completed, but he played basically all the games in. Mm-hmm. Durability has not been an issue for him. But if a team accepts that he's not the 99-point player he was a couple years ago and is more of this like 65-ish point guy, somewhere in that range, 60 to 65, that's a really good player. We've seen that he can't be a team's best player.
Yep.
And that's also okay. Like, he should still be really, really good. But a team has to understand what they're getting with him and just know, like, okay, we joke about how the Avs broke Johnny Gaudreau because he was a no-show in their first round. So, like, he had 7 points in 10 playoff games last year in the bubble.
Not against the Avs, yeah.
Yeah, like it was better. But with Gaudreau, I think there's less concern because the play, while it has dropped from elite, it's still very good. With Monahan, you're more worried about it.
There's less concern in the immediate with Gaudreau. Longer term,
you do have the other, like, you have to give him another deal. What does that look like?
Sure.
How well does he age?
Yeah.
All fair questions to ask about Gaudreau. But like, that's a really good player. He's not going to make Artemi Panarin money. He shouldn't. He hasn't shown that caliber, but like, I think that's a guy that if they're going to do it, they need to do it. And it should start with him.
Yeah.
Obviously the worst case is the guy just leaves. And you're like, well, now you got worse. Ain't got nothing for him.
Yeah.
But they do have a and then you have to have a real conversation. Like, you want to build around Matt Tkachuk. He's only 23 years old, but what are you going to build around him? If you tear it all down to the studs around him, and like Matt Tkachuk is just there, do you consider that too a full teardown? Because I would say no for right now. See how the next couple of years go.
Yeah,
but it's got to start with Gaudreau. It's got to start with Monahan, and then look, if you can get somebody to take on Mikael Backlund's money, great. Elias Lindholm would be another guy that you would move, but it's probably more valuable to you than he would be in a deal.
Would have to be the right deal type of thing. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm just not sure how a team would value Lindholm as like a solid player, but not.
He's not changing a
top
franchise. Tier echelon type of guy. Yeah, for sure.
Like coming off 47 points, like he is a good player. Elias Lindholm is a good NHLer.
Super chat from Jacob Hill here. In a dream world, what Calgary player would you target as the Avs if you were to target anyone?
Yeah, Matt Tkachuk.
Yeah, it'd be Tkachuk.
Could you a theoretical second line of Matt Tkachuk, Nazem Kadri, and Andrei Burakovsky?
Pretty disgusting.
Like, Kadri wouldn't have to do anything stupid anymore because Matt Tkachuk would be the focus of everybody's ire.
Well, and if it's a dream world where you can also afford Matt Tkachuk going forward somehow, and you drop Alex Newhook next to him, and you're in love with that line.
Yeah. And then as Landeskog ages, they just swap positions.
Yep.
And that dude next to Rantanen and next to McKinnon
gets a little silly at that point. Yeah.
It truly is too bad I'm wearing my pants for the show. I do think though, like, Elias Lindholm would be an interesting cat.
He's a dude that can definitely help a team.
Well, he's versatile. He's wing, and he's played wing and center in his career. He's signed for a couple more years at 4.9.
I don't know the specifics, to be honest.
4.85.
Sure.
For 3 more years after this, and he's 26. Like, that would be really, really, really good value as a second line guy that could either play wing or center for you, depending on what you need. Now, Kadri has already vetoed a trade to Calgary once, so he's probably not going to go back there. He probably will say no again. So you'd have to find something else to trade to get him. But like, if they wanted to try and get involved in a Calgary teardown, Lindholm is probably the perfect fit of useful but not like star player caliber, and already signed for the next couple of years at under $5 million, so that they could work around that number.
It's certainly enticing when you see that Lindholm signed for 3 more years. Boy, do you start wondering if that's a dude you could drop into Brandon Saad's spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, between center and wing, he's done both in his career.
Yep.
He's played some of both, and is an okay face-off guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's solid in that regard.
Not going to hurt you, yeah.
So that helps you a little bit there, although he would probably be replacing Kadri, who's,
money in the bank and then face-off dot. Yeah, but
quite a good one. But he would be Lindholm would be a really interesting guy. I think he would be my number one, like, realistic target.
All right, so when Calgary stays true to its name and sets itself on fire,
it does nothing and just Or what they do is like what they did last year, where they threw a bunch of money at Markstrom and then threw a bunch of money at Chris Tanev. They get a little bit older and a little bit worse, and you're just like,
and locked into deals that aren't going to help them.
What are you doing?
Yep, not great. It's not pretty, but all right. Did we want to touch on any other stars that could be out there on the trade market? But
on the trade market, I don't off the top of my head. Was there anybody that we're really missing? I know that those were like the big ones.
Yeah, I think we covered them all. We're not going to talk about Taylor Hall because it's Taylor Hall.
Yeah,
as a free agent would be, but
Yeah, like Matthias Janmark is like a depth dude that I'm not worrying about. Like maybe in free agency. That's the guy, JT Miller. Thank you. I knew there was one I was missing. They liked JT Miller a couple of years ago. Heavily rumored to be what the Avs were chasing in the Tyson Berry deal. Because do you remember draft day a couple years ago in Vancouver? And it was like I was driving from Seattle and I stopped at a gas station and got cell service, and it was just like Tyson Berry. And it was really like it was nuts.
And then he didn't get moved until after the fact.
Yeah, well, and then JT Miller got moved to Vancouver for a price that everybody was like, "What's that about?"
Yeah, I imagine it would be really tough on the price to get JT Miller out of Vancouver is the problem. Because he has 3 years left, 2 years left at 5.25.
They're up against it. So you would say, okay, maybe if you look, you would have to add extra, but what about a Ryan Graves starting point for that kind of deal?
I hear you, but I also wonder why is it JT Miller the one they're trying to move when they could try and make other things like trying to dump Brandon Suter's contract or Antoine Roussel's or something like that?
Well, they have to sign Quinn Hughes.
Sure.
And I think they've got Pettersson in a year.
That sounds right.
No, Pettersson's this offseason.
Oh, okay. So that makes it harder for them for sure.
So they've got to do both of those now.
Yeah. I guess you have guys like younger options to keep in Besser and Horvat over Miller, but
like maybe you do them a solid and you take on the Jake Virtanen money.
Yeah, just to make the price cheaper, sure.
But that would be one where that would be a lot of moving parts, right? Because it would be like I think if it was like Kadri and Graves, and then they did like Miller and Virtanen, and then the Avs threw in a pick or two, or however they needed to kind of balance that out. That way, there's a lot of money going both directions. But they're getting something that they would really, really, really like in Ryan Graves.
Yeah, their defense is in a weird spot because they're locked into Tyler Myers for so long. But yeah, that obviously, look, JT Miller would be awesome.
I actually have no idea about Jake Virtanen and a sexual assault case. I did not know anything about that.
Yeah, I had not heard of that either. That
okay. Well, in that
would
case,
throw a wrench into things.
Yeah, but in that case, obviously don't mess with any
don't mess
that.
With legal issues. Obviously,
you don't go play in that water. You just avoid that completely.
But just change the name on the rap sheet, right? They can take money from taking on Roussel's deal or whatever. But
oh god, dude, oh yeah, I totally missed out on this story with Jake Virtanen.
Yeah, I had not heard anything about that either.
I just know that back when he was a prospect, the Avs were really high on him. So I didn't know anything about any of that. So that's my bad. Good prep, AJ.
We didn't even come up with JT Miller, so we needed Chad's help with that. So knowing about Jake Virtanen,
it would be that's just kind of the idea, right? Like
conceptually,
kind of moving some money in each direction. You know, Miller's obviously the best player that would get moved, but they would kind of repeat the Kadri thing because then Miller is your 2C and he's signed for the next 2 years.
Yep.
And you're just sort of doing the same. It would kind of be the same concept as Elias Lindholm.
Yep.
But with a higher chance that Kadri says yes to a deal if Vancouver's on his veto list.
Yeah.
Vancouver's not. I don't think Vancouver's on very many players' lists. So
it's a pretty nice city to live in, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would take it like Antoine Roussel would at least fulfill their like tough guy and like French guy quotient on the fourth line, right?
True if Belmar's on the way out. Yeah.
Yeah. Antoine Roussel a couple of years ago was like at least a
solid depth option.
Yeah, he was like a productive guy at this point. But JT Miller would be a guy that I would, if I would be
over the moon.
I would be fairly interested in.
Yeah. All right.
Certainly not the superstar conversation, but the next tier, like this is a
secondary
really
tier. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've done enough daydreaming for one day, perhaps. Any final thoughts on potential star movement this offseason, AJ?
I think it's going to be a big one. Just Seattle being able to take on bad money. Their willingness to do so. I actually think a lot of people have been like, oh, teams will have learned from the Seattle or from the Vegas expansion. I think it's the opposite that's going to happen. I think teams are in a more desperate position than they were for Vegas than the Vegas one. And they will.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, right? You have teams that understand the situation better, but you also have significantly more strapped for cap than they've ever been.
Yep. And teams that are going to be desperate to get, a Milan Lucic kind of contract off of that, or, a Braden Holtby contract off of their books, or, every team in the NHL has one or two contracts where it's like,
could do without it. Yeah.
Hey, Seattle. How you feeling about this cap dump?
Yeah, and the more teams that are able to get a cap dump, regardless of price, the more opening for movement it's going to create in other trades around the league as well. So it could be a wild one. It could be.
I love our community's love of Ivan Fedotov.
It's so random.
It's just the best. I hope after the Fedotov love moves on that we, like 2 years from now, there's a totally different,
just
a totally different,
6'7"
goaltender playing in an obscure league somewhere that's like that our community is like, come on, Abs.
Rekindle the love for Shamil Shmakov.
Never going to get burned again.
Imaginary person, Shamil Shmakov.
Yeah. Never getting burned again, sir.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out with us today. We appreciate all y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed the show. Looking at more of the options around the league. I'm sure we'll be back diving into more specifically Avalanche stuff in the days coming forward. Also, be sure Thursday, not this one, but the coming Thursday, is the 1000th episode of this podcast. So should be a fun one. We're hoping to have some guests on.
We're hoping to do something to honor the 1000th episode. It may not be the actual 1000th episode though.
Yeah, it'll be near the 1000th episode.
Yeah. Depending on how scheduling goes, we will see. But next Thursday will be 1000 officially. Holy shit.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
AJ's been on like almost all of them, I think.
I have been on a lot of them.
So looking forward to that. Should be a fun time. Hope y'all tune in for that one. But we will be back tomorrow. Who knows what we're doing for a Friday episode. Could be fun. We'll see when we get there. Thank you again, and we will talk to you guys later.